You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, law enforcement rescues 18 dogs from a hoarding situation.
It's chilly. There's fog in the air. It's officially fall, right? Oh no. Wait till we get to the 7-day forecast and see 90s on the horizon. The latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, flu season is here. Experts say it is safe to get your shot if you're vaccinated against COVID. All that and more coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. The Joplin Humane Society is currently working to rehabilitate 18 dogs that were brought to them after law enforcement responded to a report of a hoarding situation in Oronogo, Missouri. KOAM's Mike Mahoney spoke to shelter and law enforcement officials to learn more.
18 dogs are now in the care of the Joplin Humane Society after the Oronogo Police and Jasper County Sheriff's Office responded to a hoarding situation in Oronogo. Roaming packs of dogs were intimidating neighbors, including Oronogo resident Patty Egan, who lives near the home that was previously packed with pups.
I have an attendant who's also a friend who she hasn't been able to walk my dog, and we can't really safely take my dog out of this yard because they will all attack her at the same time.
The owners of the dogs agreed to give up all but 4 of them to law enforcement, following reports that some of them had bitten neighbors and even an Oronogo officer.
We won't allow the situation where they're constantly roaming the neighborhoods, and the ones that we deemed to be vicious that were going after people are the dogs that we did take. We did make sure that those were ones that they handed over to us.
The 18 dogs consist of 8 adults and 10 puppies, and the Joplin Humane Society is determined to find each one a forever home, even the biters. But before that happens, they'll need help with fleas and malnourishment and a lot of tender loving care so these pups know how to behave properly around people.
So it's just getting them comfortable and getting them socialized and letting them know that humans can provide a positive interaction.
Police say the dogs' original owners let the situation get out of control because the dogs weren't fixed. But that won't be an issue going forward since the 4 dogs remaining at the home are all male. In Jasper County, Mike Mahoney, KOAM News.
If you'd like to help these dogs recover by donating to or volunteering with the Joplin Humane Society, you can check out the link to their website in the story, KOAMnewsnow.com. Trial for a Joplin man accused of killing a woman and shooting his estranged wife enters its 4th day. The 3rd day of the trial was focused on Stephen Thompson's physical well-being. At the time, prosecutors say he murdered Carissa Gerard and critically injured his estranged wife, Christina Thompson. The defense argues Thompson was unable to lift his arm very high due to a severe rotator cuff. Social worker also took the stand to testify about the Thompsons' relationship with each other and their child. You can read more about that and other updates in this story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. In the midst of a pandemic, the beginning of flu season is about to arrive. And last year, flu season was almost non-existent. But now health experts warn the flu has already arrived in the area, and it's important to get a flu shot as early as possible. Larry Bergner with the Newton County Health Department says it is safe to get vaccinated for both COVID-19 and the flu at the same time.
To get the flu shot because we've got COVID still going on, we've got other illnesses that occur, we've got the common cold. So anything we can do to boost our immune system is helpful.
Bergner says you should get your flu shot by November 1st. Pitt State's holding weekly open interviews to fill jobs. PSU is collaborating with Southeast Kansas Works for the interviews. Kansas Works helps applicant navigate the process, complete a resume, and answer questions about open jobs. Some of the available positions at Pitt State include teaching, customer service, and custodial services.
So that people have the opportunity to come see a face from Pittsburgh State and ask questions. It could be a adjunct faculty position, it could be custodian, could be a groundskeeper, maintenance, a painter or a carpenter, could be anything.
University currently has 24 open positions. Anyone interested in an interview for one of the positions can visit Southeast Kansas Works in Pittsburgh from 11 a.m. to noon every Wednesday. Fall is officially upon us, and folks with a green thumb are transitioning their gardens for the new season. We spoke with the owner of In the Garden in Pittsburgh to get some fall gardening tips. He says now is the best time to plant trees because the temperatures are cooling down. He also says you want to compost your soil now to prepare it for food later in the fall.
You can use leaves, you can use grass clippings, you can use straw, but you want to use a mixture. You want different stuff in there because you'll have different nutrients by doing that. As these microorganisms and worms feed on this stuff, they break it down so that plants can use it.
Harrison also recommends planting turnips, saying they're an old world way of putting nitrogen back in the soil.
They told us when we started this show that they wanted us to have some fun, right?
And we are.
Okay, and the gentleman that we just heard from, number one, is amazing at what he does.
Yes.
Number two, the people that work it in the garden, his employees, are tremendous. Why are there dogs barking outside the studio?
No, they're refilling the vending machine.
That goes to show you my hearing. Number two, the people that John employs are absolutely tremendous with customer service and knowledge. Number three, if we're going to have fun, for those of you that know John, know what a wonderful person he is, and know how great that shop is, when is the last time you ever saw him in a white t-shirt?
Where's the tie-dye, John?
The answer is never. He's the easiest person to spot when you're on campus there because, number one, he's got the tie-dye, but number two, he's always running. Hey, have you ever seen him walk anyplace? I have not. Like, if somebody needs help, he's off like a shot. So, John, we love you, but next time we interview you, we want the PSU tie-dye.
Yeah.
I mean, a staple is a staple and a trademark is a trademark, man. Beautiful, beautiful sunflowers right there. All right.
I love going into the garden. It's a beautiful place.
I had to qualify
place.
all that we're here to have fun. John's got wonderful people, and Tanya and I love John to death. Come on, no white T-shirts. We want the PSU tie-dye.
Everyone's going to give him such a hard time today. Michael, we've ruined it.
They can take it. He can take it out on us. We're good to go. Live look over 7th and Rangeline. A gorgeous start, but a cool start. 48 degrees is where we stand right now. We've dropped as low as 43. As a matter of fact, how about 41 right now? We are clinging to the 40s in Fort Scott, Nevada, and Stockton. My goodness. So it is a taste of fall, or taste of fall that's going to last for about one day. And the key factor is, you see how those arrows are shifting right there? Because as they move in from the south, we're going to have a quick warm-up on our hands. At the same point in time, if you thought yesterday was cool, quite a substantial drop as far as what we've seen. Now, the funny thing is, when we run this same graphic tomorrow, we'll probably see anywhere plus 10 to plus 15 is where we'll end up. So it's going to change, and it's going to change rather quickly. The Skywatch Storm Tracker, once again, this is with the satellite and precipitation layers on it. There's just nothing in the Midwest because of the high pressure system that is going to result in temperatures in the 80s, even 90s when we get through our first full week of fall.
All right, well, up next, a rising mental health crisis as young people experience anxiety over climate change, and how you can protect yourself against money scams. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.
It's the finale.
COVID-19 restrictions are having a negative impact on good sleep and outdoor recreation. A new study published in the Journal of Sleep Research found that quality of life, physical activity, and productivity all deteriorated during lockdowns. The study also found spending less time outside in the daylight takes a toll on our well-being. Young people in the LGBTQ community who are also facing homelessness are disproportionately struggling during the pandemic. A survey from the Center for Addiction and Mental Health found 1 in 3 LGBTQ homeless youth have attempted suicide since the pandemic began. 82% have engaged in self-harm. A growing number of young people are suffering from anxiety about climate change. Researchers in Britain say it's a real mental health threat and are calling for action to put an end to it. Ian Lee has the story from London.
The signs of climate change are all around, from fierce wildfires raging to freak floods killing dozens across Europe as well as the United States. And they aren't going unnoticed.
It's quite worrying, and it makes me think about our future, and it's definitely not a place that I want my kids to live in.
A new UK study asked 10,000 young adults from 10 countries how they feel about climate change.
The children started telling us that they were feeling betrayed and abandoned, and they felt that governments were lying about the effectiveness of the action they were taking to address the climate emergency.
Researchers from Bath University say 84% of people surveyed, aged 16 to 25, are at least somewhat worried about climate change. Nearly 60% say they are very or extremely worried about the climate crisis. 75% say the future is frightening.
That's the most scary bit, really, what's going to happen in future generations down the line.
And it's not just mankind they're worried about.
You don't want them to be left in a world where there's no animals that they can look at, or there's no beautiful things in the world that they can see.
Researchers say the only cure for climate anxiety is governments around the world taking real action to protect the environment. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
The climate anxiety study found 4 in 10 young people around the world are hesitant to have children as a result of the climate crisis. On a bit of a lighter note, get ready for some hearty comfort food. Today is National Great American Pot Pie Day. You can celebrate the day by going out to a restaurant for a pot pie, cooking a frozen one at home, or making one from scratch. Similar to meat pies, pot pies are distinctly American. Typical pot pie contains ingredients such as chicken, beef or pork, vegetables, and gravy. But there are endless possibilities. The first frozen pot pies were introduced by Swanson Foods in the 1950s. National Great American Pot Pie Day was created in 2002 by another frozen foods maker. You can post to the social media hashtag National Great American Pot Pie Day.
I had no idea that pot pies were an American dish.
I love pot pies.
I do too. No, I do too. I just figured that somebody else had beat us to the punch. I mean, it's a very, for all of you that make them at home, don't take this the wrong way. It's a very simple dish. Does Michael make them at home? No. He goes the frozen route.
It does take the right level of skill to get a good consistency so it doesn't turn out to be a runny pot pie.
Oh, it's a crust.
Or a dry pot pie.
It's the crust, and that's why Michael does the frozen version, because I can't do crust. And there's Waver Eberly, I love you, and you're listening to this right now, and you're saying, I know you're cursing me. 48 degrees is where we stand in Joplin. There's a chill out there this morning. We're barely hanging on to 40. In Fort Scott and Nevada. Skywatch storm tracker's clear. I want to fast forward here just a little bit because I won't bring up something we'll dive into just here a little bit later. Peter's done. Rose is a tropical low. This thing right here, now known as number 18, but this thing's got legs, and the track this thing wants to take ain't pretty when it comes to especially Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. And so its name will be Sam here. We've been talking about it for the past couple of days, waiting for it to bubble up. Here in the 4-state sunshine, high 70s, can't beat it for our first full day of fall, but then get back and ready for summer because we've got 80s, if not 90s, by the time we get to our first full week of fall. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Join us at
Well, Mother Nature's wrath is taking it out on her own beauty as the giant sequoia trees of California are threatened by wildfires started by severe weather. Massive fire has charred more than 25,000 acres with zero containment. Lightning ignited the K&P complex fire nearly 2 weeks ago. Brittany Jacob is at the Kings Canyon National Park.
Engine after engine after engine continuing to fight the flames of the K&P complex fire, which has now led to the closure of all visitor services and attractions for all of Sequoia and Kings Canyon. The flames have scorched more than 25,000 acres in less than 2 weeks, charring trees and leaving parts of the historic park covered in a black landscape. Officials say the smoky conditions make it impossible to fly any helicopters or airplanes to attack the blaze today, but there is an upside to the haze.
The smoke keeps humidities up and it keeps temperatures down, so it kind of puts a lid on the fire, so the activity isn't intense. If that smoke cleared and we had blue sky, sun, and wind on the fire, that is a more challenge for the firefighters on the ground. The activity will pick up, but that also gives helicopters and airplanes a chance to get in the air and assist those folks on the ground. So it is a balance either way.
Officials say the fire intensity was reduced as it moved into areas where prescribed fire treatments were previously completed in the giant forest area. That proactive work has helped to protect the iconic sequoia trees.
If you have a landscape that's healthy and that's been treated over several decades, that fire behavior can be really intense, but once it meets that footprint of the prescribed burn, the behavior changes, the flame lengths drop down, and it gives firefighters a chance to really attack it and manage it much more easily.
Information Officer Mark Garrett tells me nearly 1,000 personnel from across the country are working this fire 24 hours a day. Their top priority is protecting lives and infrastructure, followed by the trees.
Folks are really happy to be here and be part of this fire just because we're protecting the iconic trees. So I think spirits are high and we haven't lost any structures. We don't have any injuries. We don't have any sequoias that are burning. So all in all, I think we're looking pretty good.
We'll be right back with today's four-state hero. It's time to honor today's four-state hero, Tech Sergeant Doc Venturella in the U.S. Army. The Riverton, Kansas native joined the 176th Field Artillery Unit in 1951. Stationed at the 38th Parallel and earned the Korean War Service Medal along with the United Nations Service Medal. We thank you, Tech Sergeant Doc Venturella, today's four-state hero. Well, scam victims come from all walks of life, education levels, and backgrounds. So why do some people fall for scams while others do not? Anthony Pura has the results of a new study.
We have a miscalculation on your tax file, you owe us some money.
Jackie says that's what a caller claiming to be an IRS agent told her, but it was actually a con artist who demanded $500.
Here at Abernathy Roofing and Construction, we have been caring for the needs of our customers for more than 20 years by enriching their
Jackie
homes,
paid the
while
money,
specializing
and a
in
new study
roofing
from the Better
decks.
Business Bureau and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, or FINRA, is shedding light on why she did.
Certain people are more vulnerable
Check us out at
to certain types of scams.
FINRA's Gary Matola and other researchers interviewed people contacted by con artists. They found those who lost money were less likely to question authority.
You don't want to mess with the IRS. Like, it's just, that's kind of, I don't know. That was my viewpoint at that point.
The study also showed scam victims may believe people who ask too many questions seem ignorant, and that wealth is built on random opportunities, which can make them vulnerable to job scams, like Carl.
I couldn't find another job, and like I said, at my age, I'll be 60 years old in November.
Researchers discovered many scam victims think the world rewards good people, leading them to trust others.
I am not aware of how crooked the world is.
Cynthia lost money in an online investment scam. She trusted the con artist and admits not asking enough questions.
That's when things can get dangerous in terms of losing money in a financial fraud.
Matola says whether it's a phone call or email, always question why someone is asking for money or personal information, and don't be afraid to ask friends and family for advice. Anthony Pura, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Matella says the good news is our viewpoints can change with experience. He hopes the findings lead to educational campaigns that can help people avoid scams. Another half hour of news and weather is just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, Michael's got an interview with Mercy Hospital that you won't want to miss. But first, the FDA gives approval for a COVID booster shot for those most at risk. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
Four States Most Watched News starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:28. Let's take a look at today's top stories. FDA gives authorization for booster doses of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for senior citizens and others at high risk for the virus. The ruling represents a drastically scaled back version of the Biden administration's sweeping plan to give third doses to nearly all American adults to shore up their protection amid the spread of the highly contagious Delta variant. Last year, flu season was almost non-existent, but now health experts say the flu has already arrived in the area. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky spoke with local health experts on how four-staters can protect themselves from both COVID-19 and the flu and when to get each vaccine.
As the season changes from summer to fall, we are also about to enter another season, flu season. Last year, flu season was almost non-existent.
Last year's flu season was very, very mild. We had very limited cases, and a lot of that was due to the restrictions that were in place last year to protect people from COVID. No social gatherings, social distancing, masking.
But health experts expect things to look different this year.
But we do really expect a higher number of cases of influenza this year because there are less restrictions.
Which is why these experts say now is the best time to get a flu shot.
I would recommend getting a flu shot by November 1st. Most people try to get it in October. But since that season runs till April 1st, the flu shot will protect you through that time frame. So 1st of October, mid-October is usually the best time to get the flu shot.
For anyone who hasn't gotten their COVID-19 vaccine and also wants to get their flu shot, you can get both at the same time.
There is no time period between the vaccinations that is being recommended. If we administer COVID vaccine and influenza vaccine together, we will be doing in different arms unless there's a medical reason to prevent that.
For hospitals, more flu hospitalizations could mean trouble, which is why wearing masks and practicing social distancing is still recommended. In Joplin and Neosho, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
Ascension Via Christi in Pittsburgh has already treated some of the area's first influenza patients. Pitt State is holding weekly open interviews to fill jobs. PSU is collaborating with Southeast Kansas Works for the interviews. Kansas Works helps applicants navigate the process, complete a resume, and answer questions about open jobs. Some of the available positions at Pitt State include teaching, customer service, and custodial services.
24 openings, and that's kind of been our number recently through the summer. And we just continue to hire. So we wanted to continue to give that opportunity for the community to come talk to us about our openings.
University currently has 24 open positions. Anyone interested in an interview for one of the positions can visit Southeast Kansas Works in Pittsburgh from 11 a.m. to noon every Wednesday. Well, fall is officially upon us, and folks with a green thumb are transitioning their gardens for the new season. We spoke with the owner of In the Garden in Pittsburgh to get some fall gardening tips. He says now is the best time to plant trees because the temperatures are cooling down. He also says you want to compost your soil now to prepare it for food later in the fall.
You can use leaves, you can use grass clippings, you can use straw, but you want to use a mixture. You want different stuff in there. Because you'll have different nutrients by doing that. As these microorganisms and worms feed on this stuff, they break it down so that plants can use it.
Harrison also recommends planting turnips, saying they're an old world way of putting nitrogen back in the soil.
Gentlemen, there's a wealth of information right there. Anything that you ever need for your yard. He is a person to talk to and listen to. More importantly, I've had a multitude of questions for him throughout my lifetime, and he's never steered me wrong. So, John, I appreciate you taking time to do that interview. Tanya, going into what would be Tuesday, our September average high was 90.5 degrees, and that was 20 days into the month. It's pretty impressive to drop 1.6 degrees for a daily average high in just 2 days. Now, take that 51 out of it, remember. That's just the high that we've reached so far today at Joplin Regional Airport, and that's not even right now. That was actually at the turn of the clock. But it shows you when the old roller coaster drops like that, what a difference it can make. There we are over 7th and Rangeline. It's a gorgeous Thursday morning, but 48 degrees, my goodness. Barometer holding steady, even with the high pressure over us, as we range anywhere right now from 42, looks like our low spot in Nevada, up to 45 in Miami, 47 in Carthage, and 46 in Chanute. It is a clear Skywatch storm tracker. We have nothing to worry about, and here's why. That high pressure that was just off to the west of us yesterday, now riding right over us. That forced the low pressure system up to the Great Lakes. As a matter of fact, they had some tremendous weather in the Great Lakes yesterday, including 16-foot wave swells on Lake Michigan. So let's be fortunate, even though we've got a heat wave on our hands with 80s and 90s coming our way. It would be nice if we got a shower or two, but overnight low is going to push back up into the 50s and 60s. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. The KOAM Morning News, for the past 18, 24 months, healthcare workers have obviously been in the forefront of all of our minds because of what they've had to deal with and the fact that they're putting themselves essentially in the midst of the pandemic to help heal other people. And I hope the memory of that has not waned. But I want to bring somebody on who's directly involved with that and is actually putting on a special event and a specific recognition of our healthcare heroes and giving them a chance to, number one, be honored and recognized, but also number two, maybe actually take some time off that's needed. And it's Chris Butler. And Chris is the director of facilities at Mercy Hospital. Chris, number one, I want to thank you for your time. Number two, before we get to the event itself that's going to take place at Landreth Park, your Healthcare Hero Days that you're putting on, I want to ask you a question. Compared to 12 months ago, when we were talking about healthcare workers, frontline workers, do you think that we're paying less attention now? Are we giving it appropriate? Be honest with me. How do you feel it's going?
It's definitely waned. We spent a lot of time during the beginning of the pandemic saying they were heroes and putting up the signs, and we really weren't going through it as hard then as we are now. And in our local area, it's just exploded. COVID exploded, and the healthcare workers didn't shy away. They didn't call in sick to work. But now it seems like as a community, we've kind of forgotten that those people are working endless hours. They're not calling in and taking days off. They're not taking vacations. They're working extra shifts because we've got hospitals full of patients.
And so you put it upon yourself, and you've got a great support system with your daughter-in-law, Taylor. They're with you as well. And you come up with this idea for Healthcare Heroes Day. Why? How did you come up with it and why?
We know from having our meetings with the hospital that our staff's tired. And when they're spending all their time taking care of all of our community's family members who are in the hospital, that's time they're missing with their own families. So we just wanted to put together a day where they could come out with their own family, enjoy the day, not have to worry about anybody else's family but their own, and just have fun, have a little stress relief.
And it's a day-long event. This is going to take place at Landreth Park coming up September 26th from 1 to 8 p.m. And once again, this is open and free to all healthcare professionals. And sometimes we have a tendency to think about healthcare professionals as being doctors or nurses. But I want to point out that people like Chris, who is the director of facilities at Mercy, you do not understand the important role that him and his entire crew play in keeping everybody, patients, visitors, and employees safe out there. Chris, I understand you have quite a family lineage as far as healthcare heroes that you're directly related to.
Yeah, I come from a healthcare family. My mother's a nurse. My grandmother worked in the hospital.
Wow.
Healthcare's just kind of been, that's been our family thing. And now I've got my daughter-in-law works in Mercy clinics, and then my own daughter is an MA for one of the spine surgeons at Mercy.
Taylor, I'm gonna grab you really fast because you've got a new company. It's actually called Jungle Mounts LLC. You guys have great inflatable houses and whatnot, and you're going to be out there along with the food trucks. You're going to have the opportunity to do everything out there, folks. Once again, for healthcare professionals, Landreth Park, September 26th, 1 to 8 p.m. Free and open because Chris has found it in the kindness of his heart to be able to host this. Taylor, what's it mean to be able to go out there and play a role in letting these families take a deep breath and relax for a day?
It's a pretty cool opportunity that we are able to do that and have the opportunity to help each and every single one of them in a way that is just simple as their kids having a good day with their families.
Chris, I give you the floor here. because what we're truly doing is we're bringing back healthcare heroes. We're bringing that back to the forefront on the September the 26th. I give you the open floor and the open microphone. What would you like to tell all of our healthcare workers right now?
Hey, we just want everybody to know that we appreciate all the efforts, and it's not just the doctors and nurses, it's everybody. It's the EVS, it's the facilities, it's the dietary staff, it's the people driving the ambulance who've had to deal with COVID, it's the police officers, the firefighters. We've all had to deal with COVID. This is something that's wore us out. So we want to give you a day of live music all day. We got great bands coming. We've got the best food trucks in the area coming. We've got the biggest amusements set up in the 4-state area coming for you. We want you to bring your kids out, enjoy the day, have a blast on us. Just come out and have fun.
Everybody, you healthcare heroes out there, please, September 26th, Landreth Park, all of you deserve it. And please know that all of us at KOAM and Fox 14, we echo those same sentiments that I could not have put any better than what Chris just put. And the fact that I hope you feel that it hasn't waned, and if it has, I apologize because we all owe a big thank you. Chris Butler and Taylor Butler. Chris and Taylor, I want to thank you for joining us today, and thank you for putting on the Healthcare Heroes Day as well.
Thanks, Michael.
We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
It's the
parents of 2 missing boys remain hopeful for their return, and they held a vigil this week to keep their memories alive. David Kaplan visited the family in Bakersfield, California.
This is my season. Songs were played at Tuesday night's prayer vigil.
Lord, I just ask that you get him strength, Lord, because it's hard.
And people prayed for missing boys Oren and Orson to be found.
Sadness, the emotions is like everywhere. You can't, it's like no rest in your mind. You know, there's 2 kids missing.
Trezell and Jacqueline West, adoptive parents of 4-year-old Oren and 3-year-old Orson, say they last saw the boys in the backyard of their California City home December 21st, 2020, 9 months ago. Every month, people in Bakersfield are continuing to look for the boys and get the word out.
We have to just basically keep doing what we're doing, bringing awareness, making the shirts, the masks, whatever we have to do. Every 21st of the month, we're going to be in different places praying for these boys. It's not going to stop.
BPD is still working with the FBI, the Kern County Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney's Office, and the California City Police Department on the case. They just gave the last detailed update in June. 83 individuals have been interviewed, 44 search warrants conducted, and 16 mass area searches have been done. Sergeant Pear says these numbers have gone up as the investigation has continued. He says this is not a cold case.
We work closely with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and some of the other subject matter experts regarding specific things that we needed done during the investigation.
Jennifer Nobles heard about the missing boys and the efforts to find them. She raised money to put up a sign on a billboard on Mohawk Street in Bakersfield asking for help to find the boys. There is also a billboard with a picture of the boys on the 99 freeway southbound near Merle Haggard Drive.
Every month we've kind of orchestrated together, keeping the billboard going on the 99 freeway, like going south in between Norris and Merle Haggard. It's a huge digital.
She says they don't want this case to go quiet.
There's so many cases that have happened, you know, especially the one that's so recent, you know, to all of us that we all know about with Gabby's case. And, you know, there's a lot of attention out there. And the boys, being that it was 9 months ago, as of today, that they were reported missing, and they don't get talked about a lot.
The voice for the voiceless.
If we don't go out there and do it, us, you know, people, friends, community doesn't go out there and do it, who's going to do it? Who's going to be their voice? Like, I feel like we have to be their voices in order for them to get the, you know, the attention that they need, so that maybe somebody's going to spot them, you know.
Justice Department is suing American Airlines and JetBlue over their recent alliance, which allows them to sell seats on each other's flights. Well, the partnership was announced last year and approved by the Transportation Department during the waning days of the Trump administration. The antitrust lawsuit says the arrangement will lead to fewer choices and higher prices for passengers. American and JetBlue denied that and said they intend to continue to work together while the case is litigated. 33 major U.S. companies are stepping up to help Afghan refugees. They've joined Tent Partnership for Refugees, an organization founded by the Chobani CEO. Amazon, Facebook, Pfizer, Tyson Foods, Uber, and UPS are among the companies that have promised to hire and train Afghans settling in the U.S. Amazon has said it would hire refugees in its warehouses and transportation centers with a starting wage of more than $18 an hour. It'll also pay for training and education programs. We'll be right back with more after this, but first let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
Yeah, certainly not to bring the room down here before we get to the weather, but I realized that it happened overnight and I missed it. I didn't realize that Melvin Van Peebles had passed. I believe he was 89 years old, truly a pioneer as far as the black community goes in Hollywood, and what he was not only able to produce, but then you look at, you had Mario, you had Megan, and you had Max, his 3 children that would go on to be ultimately successful in Hollywood as well. So once again, the passing of Melvin Van Peebles this morning. All right, no easy transition from that, and I apologize. Let's take a live look over 7th and Range Line. It's a little bit of a chill in the air here on our first morning of fall. Remember the fall equinox was not until 2:20 yesterday afternoon, so this will be our first fall morning, and appropriately enough, it's 48 degrees. We dropped as low as 41 up in Fort Scott and Nevada earlier this morning, so now we're seeing our rebound now that we're almost 45 minutes past sunrise. And the Skywatch storm tracker, yes, I keep on reiterating this, that is with the satellite layers on. There's just simply nothing around because of the high pressure that has moved a little bit to the east from what we had yesterday. So now it runs pretty much straight over us, as opposed to being in the central portion of Kansas is where it was yesterday, now moving down to northwest Arkansas, but still that means blue sky and plenty of sunshine as well. The low pressure system that you see up by the Great Lakes, that will be the biggest threat for thunderstorm activity for today. We'll make it up into the high 70s. It's going to be absolutely delightful for a late September day. 21st of September. How did we miss that, Marcos, with earth, wind, and fire? I just realized it's the 23rd. How did we miss the 21st? Okay. As we progress through our afternoon, we'll see warmer temperatures out to the west. That's because the wind will shift there earlier, and so we'll see 80s. I'm going to average it out and say high 70s. The biggest difference you'll see is overnight. Our temperature is probably going to be about 10 to 15 degrees warmer for tonight into Friday morning than what we experienced this morning. And that means a warming trend with the wind shifting to the south and bringing us high 80s and 90s by the weekend. We'll be back and wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. The FDA late Wednesday gave its blessing to Pfizer booster shots for senior citizens and others at high risk from the coronavirus. CDC must weigh in to make it final. And in a virtual COVID-19 summit with world leaders, President Biden pledged to send an additional 500 million vaccine doses to countries that need the most. That brings the U.S. commitment to more than 1 billion doses. In Florida, the search for Gabby Petito's boyfriend is still focused on a vast nature preserve. Teams have been scouring the swampy area since the weekend. Preliminary autopsy found Gabby's death during a cross-country trek out west to be a homicide. And Melvin Van Peebles has died at his home in New York City. Filmmaker, playwright, and musician helped popularize a wave of 1970s films featuring black casts that helped shape the movies for decades to come. Melvin Van Peebles was 89. Those are some of today's top stories. Let's check in with Michael with a final look at your forecast.
You don't want to say the name of his most favorite movie?
Of his most favorite?
The FCC does not want you to say the name of his most famous movie.
Okay.
Is what I'm telling you. That was a setup. Hey, I was talking about. Oh, okay. Yeah, here I am. I'm sitting at the Weather Center. No, we were just talking about Melvin Van Peebles, and also too how I blew September 21. I felt terrible for doing that. After I looked at the calendar, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the 23rd. I'm a huge Earth, Wind, and Fire fan, and it obviously slipped my mind. And we've been talking about, I don't know, the wise ones come into mind, and found the love we shared in September. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that line was echoing through my head, because this is September weather to love right here.
And often you find ways to incorporate lyrics from Earth, Wind, and Fire into your weather forecast.
Sunny skies. How about that? You want to go dance?
Sure.
Well, I mean, come on. On and on. Someday, do you remember? On and on. Dancing in September.
I asked for it. Yes, I did.
On and on, Tanya, on this Thursday. There will never be a cloudy day.
Aww.
Thank you so much for letting us put the good in your morning. We'll be back with more news and weather, and possibly singing when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
On and on.
Indigo Sky Casino, your premier gaming destination, invites you